All right, let's get ready for this. Should have started in theory. Edit video. Go out here. Live. View control room. There we go. Where are we? Come on. All right, muted. Good. I don't want to have to listen to myself. Live chat. That is the proper setting. Now, just in general, wait till people start to show up. Oh, hello. One so far. All right, we're going to wait a little bit until I feel like whoever's going to show up has shown up. Josh was not the first person to show up. That's weird. Yeah, let me text him, make sure he's not asleep, even though he was awake like 20 minutes ago. Yeah. Free chug some water. Two speaking people out of three, or out of zero. YouTube can't apparently decide. 6 or 0. YouTube has no consistency, as always. This stuff is still up. Don't need that anymore. All right, these aren't going to suddenly black out when I look at them. Yes. No. Okay. Excellent. There he is. No, you messed up. Usually you're the first. Usually, well, actually, recently you started creeping me out by showing me up or showing up like before I even started the stream. But today you are third to arrive, Josh. All right. Not certain about the particular time. I figure I'll. It's 4 minutes until the hour, so I'll probably wait till then. See if anybody else shows up. Then I'll generally do a vague start. But a bit rate of 0. Is YouTube lying? Yep. YouTube is lying because my bit rate is not 0. All right, shut up, YouTube. There is no truth to your words, as usual. Check some stuff real quick while we wait for people to show up. See if we got any updates. And no monthly update on that. On the global oil data, that is. Prices still where they were most recently. Definitely not where they should be. Does anyone run into anything else? And just give a quick look. Yeah, 434 on a neutral temperature day. That's pretty usual. Oh, all right. Now I have 6 or 5. All right, starting to get more consistent between YouTube's two personalities. Uh, TBD, TBD what? Or what's to be decided? That's usually what that abbreviation means, at least. But I'm ancient now, so I don't know if that's like the most recent definition of that acronym. Burnt your pizza. I have unburnt pizza, but I also managed to slice my toe open before starting the stream. Otherwise, I would have started probably at like 5:30. Uh, uh, Oh, yeah, kind of. Uh, we've kind of basically made up our mind to uh indirectly we've made up our minds into self-condemnation, but I mean, we could potentially always reverse it. All right, so most streamers I realized just who aren't playing video games, that is, streamers that like talk about stuff, apparently uh they I was worried about potentially uh doing geography stuff, but apparently uh most most streamers who do like talking about stuff apparently just like sit there with a camera on them and stare at it, and I guess people are okay with just staring at somebody's face while they talk about a subject. So I figure instead of doing like specific geography streams anymore, I'll like while I'm talking about the potential not ending of civilization, I will discreetly display my ridiculous and, as a commenter told me once, useless geography knowledge. But first, before doing so, let me make sure I get it down to the appropriate size to where the ads just, or was it just the, oh yeah, it's just the side ones I don't want showing up. So those are usually the ones that have perverted stuff. All right, so we'll have a few minutes until people potentially show up, or I'll give it a few more minutes. All right, let me mute that. Well, let me see who's here so far. 10. You treated it. What, you mean my toe? Yeah, yeah, that's fine. I washed it off and used a used a band-aid as like makeshift tape to tape a gauze thing around it. All right, we're getting a spike of people here, so yeah, okay, I'll give it another like minute or two, and then I'll like get started. So, well, started. St. Lucia, St. Vincent and Grenadines, Liechtenstein is a tiny little thing up there. Madagascar. So I will be. I'll be interested to see how many people I potentially piss off with this episode. Usually, I get a lot of I get conflicting disagreements from like two different ends of the spectrum. From like super doomers versus I guess the most frequent people on the positive end of the spectrum, I guess, would be tech bros that just like spam at me about like how I'm full of nonsense. I'm full of nonsense, and Elon Musk is going to save everybody, and everything's going to be fine. So I'm curious. I feel like this will probably be one of the ones where I get lambasted like that, but we'll have to wait and see. Korea, Haiti. Oh yeah, Haiti's recently descended into complete abject chaos. What's somebody saying? Pop-ups we back in the. Oh well, yeah. They I do remember. I'm old enough to remember like trying to use the internet in like the 2000s, and stuff was like really weird, and like websites had like no security because like it really hadn't been developed like truly yet. So you could just like click on stuff like on a legitimate website, and like just boom, like random like porn window will just open up like on your computer. That happened. that happens on the in like the early days of iTunes, because we went like way back in either I think it was the early 2010s. We went to the iTunes site, and we we hit their download link, and the browser just like sputtered all of a sudden, and it spazzed out, shut down, and it reopened, and there was just like some naked Thai Thai chick on a motorcycle, and it's like welcome to 322, and I was like, no, how about no? And what we got now? 11 or 13. All right, I guess we shall vaguely begin. So let me open up my stuff, my notes that I use now, at least to keep myself on topic. Okay, so notes open, and in no particular like order of subject, we. All right, I guess we'll start with an overview. So, for those who aren't aware, there are currently close to 8 billion of us. There are not actually 8 billion. If you see those like news reports telling you that, those are just looking at population clock websites, which are literally just running an algorithm. They're not based on like actual like surveying data and compilations from like data releases from various governments. Uh, the the CIA's public website, ironically, is actually one of the best places to get reliable data. Uh, and or the UN population surveying division. I'm not sure what its like official name is, but they actually like take into account like each year's like decreasing birth rates or flattened birth rates in different countries, and they actually like track migration rates and various stuff to try to avoid double counting people, and so they both estimated about the same amounts, the CIA and the UN, of about 7.92 billion in September of this past year, 2022, and and estimated that our population is now decrease or increasing by less than 80 million per year in the upper 70s. And so, 3 months, which is one quarter of a year after September, getting to the end of 2022, would bring you up to about 7.94, maybe 7.95 billion, which is where the CIA slash UN slash also UN roughly estimate we are at this particular moment. It would not somehow jump up to 8 billion, which is what the news told you, because the news is just looking at population clock websites, which aren't compiling data. Like I said, they're just running an algorithm that counts up. So, and on those like clock websites, I have followed them for a while. You will see they only really update their algorithms like once every 5 years or so. So in reality, the population of the world right now is probably around 7.95 billion, starting to inch closer to 7.96. And that's kind of an issue, in case, in the odd chance you weren't aware of it, because uh, we use and need a lot of stuff. We don't really want to live in caves and exposed to the elements anymore, and we don't want to work like 12 hours a day out in the peasant fields. So now, as opposed to a while ago, we kind of require a lot of things and a lot of energy to live the way that we presently do. Even for those of you who may not be in like Western or first world countries, or in but in like countries of like slightly lower, but not third world standards. Even living at like some of that middle ground is still way more intensive than, if we had, say, 8 billion people not in this time period. However, we wouldn't be able to have 8 billion people not in this time period because our ability to produce and distribute food without the present system would not have allowed for that many people. But anyways, so we are running into a problem for anyone who's not aware. Well, various problems. One, we are well aware that we are running up against energy constraints under our present model of doing things in terms of like wanting energy constantly that is not going to have negative consequences on us. And also actual, like, just straight up resource constraints as well. And so we're trying to solve these various problems. Uh, the big one that's on the news the most is the climate change issue. Sometimes you'll hear about actual like energy provision issues, uh, but overall, we're trying to solve these problems, but we're not really doing it in ways that are going to work. For example, we are pursuing we are like mind-numbingly like hardcore deadlocked into pursuing the whole wind and solar only plus electric vehicles thing, which is not going to work. I've shown that quite a few times. I usually remake that video about how the math doesn't work out for that. I remake that video every couple years, and it's about time. So I will try to do that soon. Granted, I told you guys I would be trying to make this video or this stream for like the last 3 years, and it took me this long to get around to it. So you shouldn't entirely take my word on stuff. But yeah, the whole wind and solar only, all green energy, EVs, everything path isn't really going to work because of various factors such as there literally not being enough of the critical resources needed for those things on Earth, and also several of those resources being needed for other things. And we can't like pick one over the other because picking one over the other would, like if we chose wind turbines and solar panels instead of electronics, then I mean we would have electricity, but we wouldn't actually have modern civilization. We would just be generating a modern civilization's amount of electricity that we wouldn't use to do anything. So that's causing issues, and also we can't just stay on our current system because one, fossil hydrocarbons, with the exception of coal, are limited. Coal, in terms of how much we use it, is effectively limitless. It's not actually limitless. Again, don't try to misquote me on that. But there is too much coal that we like literally cannot use all of it. Like we would have to dedicate ourselves, like our entire civilizational aim, to just trying to use as much coal as possible in order to actually even attempt to consume all of the coal on this planet. And for why that is, remember, coal is formed by the entombed remnants of ancient dead forests, ancient dead plant life. So think for a minute, or look up on the internet if you want, the sheer scale of biomass that is composed by plants versus other types of life. It is literally orders of magnitude greater in volume of biomass. So there's your answer for why compared to like oil and gas is there just so much such an unfathomable amount of coal, is because the amount of plant biomass on Earth is orders of magnitude greater than everything else. But we can't continue down that road if we want to avoid the whole climate change impact stuff. So we need something else, and we need an alternative. We need an alternative to our current system. However, what we're pursuing as the alternative, the whole green energy EVs thing, isn't actually viable. So that kind of leaves everyone with the question of, so what are we supposed to do other than die? Well, That's what we are here to answer with me, the most unprofessional energy streamer. I don't even know if there's other energy streamers. But so to first to take a look at things firstly, one of the first angles, one that usually gets brought up to me the most often, is what about energy efficiency? And it's usually I usually dismiss it because it's usually presented to me in a way of we just need to be more efficient with our energy, and then we could keep doing everything we do the way we're doing it, which is not the case. However, energy efficiency is a thing, and a thing that we have not pursued like to the ends of the earth in the way that you might think we have. Some countries in Europe have gone a long way. However, not even all of Europe has actually done everything possible, and certainly not the rest of the world. And when I say the rest of the world, people usually just point the finger at the US. However, I hate to break you non Americans' ironic Americentrism, but there is an actual rest of the world that consumes way more power. Like China is now up to averaging close to 1.1 terawatts. Uh, India is India was lagging behind for a while, but they are rapidly accelerating now. And Indonesia is about to pick up pretty hardcore. Let me see. Oh man, you guys are really talkative today. 22, that's a record. Hello, everybody. This is, I think, the biggest record, everybody. Uh, Mindless consumerism. Yes, yes, actually. That is a huge issue that we will be speaking to. Uh, blah blah blah. Uh, Fusion. No. Fusion, for one, it's not really going to work. Two, there's a few designs that might vaguely work, but the margin of like excess energy beyond what it takes to run the reactor is like so small that it's worthless, particularly compared to like the expense and resource intensity of building and operating them versus that of just building a regular nuclear fission power plant. So fusion is not where we're going. It's one of the things we're trying to do, which is stupid because it's not going to go anywhere. But blah blah. Uh, ooh, yes and no. Because both China and India are going to. I can't tell you exactly when because it depends on how when on how and when they do particular stuff. But they're both going to be undergoing internal like societal implosions, each for different reasons. So which and societal implosions usually lead to mass death events of varying degrees, unless you're like a unless you're in a country that's like not really able to lock itself down and is prone to mass exodus, like in Venezuela's case, when Venezuela collapsed a couple of years back, 7 million people just walked out of the country over the course of like the last 5 years. However, that's not really a thing that can happen, uh, or at least that can go over like effectively for like China and India, because no one's going to want to take that kind of a huge mass of people because even if you like reduce the percentage, a comparative position of like 7 million people out of what Venezuela's population was when the collapse started for them was about like 20%. Even if we reduce that to say down to like 2% of India or China's population, that's like between 20 and 25 million people, and no one's going to be like wanting to to receive that degree of a mass exodus. So there will be like restrictions on that, which will trap people within, which will increase a feedback loop in the like collapse that's ongoing inside, which will then further amplify the ongoing mass death events of the time. So yes, they are going to continue like stacking up in their contribution to our problems. However, they are also going to have a big chunk collapse out from that. Uh, China, the one thing I could say is China. It depends on if, and I'm more than 50, I'm more than 50% convinced they are going to do it. It depends on if they decide to go for Taiwan, if and when. If they do, then that will effectively seal their internal collapse, like in the much more immediate future, as opposed to like 10 to 20 years out. And I'm I'm not like 90% convinced they are going to do it, but I am more than 50. I'd say like 60 to 70% they are going to do it, because when totalitarian regimes get into that position, they just going for that, going for something like that, like a mass a quick war of nationalist zeal and glory is kind of what they do, because they figure, it's the best way to try to like rally the population back around them, distract from failures. So I'm pretty convinced they're going to inevitably do it, because I mean it was stupid for Russia to invade Ukraine, and a lot of us thought they wouldn't do it because it would be stupid, but they did it anyways. And as much as everyone keeps trying to give China credit for supposedly being run smart, it actually isn't. And it would be stupid for them to try to invade Taiwan. However, we've already seen the stupidity thing play out, so I don't really think that's going to be a holdback on that decision. But anyways, okay, so away from that diatribe, onto the subject of, before talking about different like energy systems in and of themselves, we still actually do have a potential to vastly reduce our energy consumption to begin with. Now, like I said, a number of countries, like some European countries, and Japan, have already done this to a fair extent. They've pursued at least most of the routes that were available when the wave of that started in like the mid 2000s. But not everyone actually has, and China and India haven't, nor have a lot of other places, especially places that like to live in opulence, like the rich Persian Gulf oil states. They don't really care about energy efficiency because they have money. So when you have money, you don't really have to care about anything. But on the actual like rundown of what can we do, some of which has been done, some of which hasn't. The initial first thing that usually comes to people's minds is lights. You remember we initially made the transition to compact fluorescents and then to LEDs. A huge chunk of people, even in the US, have switched like their lights in their home over to LED lights, and because people are a lot more like cost conscious of like their utility bills than richer companies are. So then you come to the subject of fluorescent lights, which are the more distributive lights that are used inside commercial buildings, businesses, stores, and the like. We do have LED replacements for those. It's basically a long LED strip inside of a tube, and they only use about 30 to 40% as much electricity. And in the U.S. in particular, it's the only one I have like exact statistics for. Uh, Only about half, as of 2020, only about half of the like commercial building fluorescent lights in the U.S. have been changed over to their LED replacements. So actually, half of the like commercial and business and store lighting in the U.S. That was old fluorescent tubes are actually still using regular old fluorescent tubes. And again, this is just in the U.S. For example. I don't know the exact statistics elsewhere. I also don't know like the exact statistics for homes and apartments elsewhere in the world that have like replaced their regular old bulbs with like modern LED bulbs. For regular lights in like homes and stuff for light bulbs, LED light bulbs only consume about 5 to 10% as much electricity. But so yeah, they a route of energy reduction that way is uh, switch all of those over in actuality, and in the US's case, like actually finish switching over the fluorescent tubes, since only about half of that's been done. Because, like I said, plenty of businesses and corporations don't really care because their individual building utility bills are like, yeah, whatever. We make billions of dollars a year. We don't care about costs that small. Also, also things that things that other people have thought of, obviously, but I just came up with off the top of my head that I know other people have probably thought of, but I've never seen anybody really doing is for one, because it's a problem I've noticed down here. For those who don't know, uh, I live, or I should be living in Alaska. However, because of 2020, I have been unemployed except for YouTube, and I've been trapped living down with my parents in the regular U.S. now. Because obviously, without like a my regular paying job back up home, I wasn't able to stay there. Something I've noticed down here is a lot of places are unregulated and really lazy, including their like parking lot lights, their parking lot, and like even some of the street lights. I have literally gone to stores and to businesses and just flat out seen these street lights, the parking lot lights on in the middle of the day. And those things, each one of those are like, if they're still the old sodium lights, they're about 300 watts. If they're the LED replacements for those, then they're only about 100 watts. But I have literally seen like tons of those just on during the day. So either like some towns or some businesses, whoever is in control of them, like doesn't have them on a timer, or if they're like manually switched off, they someone's just not switching them off when the sun comes up. So that is something that needs to be addressed and would definitely help quite a bit. And I highly doubt that the U.S. is the only place this is happening. Uh, all right. What else? Oh, yeah. Something else that could be done is uh, reduce actually reduce the sheer number of commercial lights. And what I mean by that is, if you go into and don't try to act like this is just a U.S. thing. That this is in Asia as well. This is in Europe as well. I've been around. I've been to Australia. I've been up in Canada. I've been over to Europe, and it is not just a U.S. thing. If you go into a commercial space, into a store, into a business, the entire like ceiling, like front to back, like every other square, sometimes every single square in certain lines is just lights, 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 front to back. That is not necessary. I mean, some people, uh, some people are maybe slightly need a bit more light than others, but people aren't blind. You don't literally need to have 10 million lights in a single building. Like you could we could just we could just do say a 10% cut. Okay, like every 10 lights in a giant store or whatever, remove one of them. You could do a 10% cut, and it would make next to no difference in the actual like immense lighting in the store. However, it would make it would produce a sudden drop in their energy consumption. Let's check chats. Man, wow, you guys are like super talkative. 23. That is a mega record. 23. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, stupidity absolutely is a threat to national security, but that's not something you can actually like. You can't actually really combat stupidity because ultimately that ends up coming down to personal choice. And if people want to be stupid, they're just going to be stupid. I'm not sure if you're talking to another chatter or me. I'm not proposing a technocracy. I'm not presenting these ideas under the pretext of make everyone do them or you get shot. I'm presenting them as here are various things that we could pursue to their end that would definitely help us and are and would not be and that are like not part of a pursuit of dumber things like the whole wind and solar only all EVs thing or staying with the system as is with no changes thing, which seem to be the only two options people keep trying to present. There's actually there's not just a B or X Y axis. There is actually a third axis. There's a third dimension here, the maxogear axis, the maximum access, I guess you could say, that no one is pursuing and that we're not going to because that would be smart, and we don't do smart things because we're humans, and humans are not actually intelligent. We are instead really stupid and self-destructive. 25, man, you guys are showing up for this one. Uh, Brick and mortar wastelands, criminalized heavy super supply. Not criminalizing those, actually doing the opposite for the opposites. I will speak about that eventually. 26. Excellent. Just blah, blah, blah. Okay, drop that. If you start talking about like mass executions or stuff, you're gonna get banned. Blah blah blah. I've tried catchy titles with you guys before. Like the more catchy I make a title on a video or a stream, the fewer people show up to it. It's always like the random stuff I do, like just a generic update on OPEC's oil production levels that like suddenly gets like or a random drought update level that just like suddenly gets thousands of views. It's like no, you're not convincing me it's the catchy title because I've tried catchy titles before. I might just like not have made them catchy enough, I guess. You could probably make that argument, and you'd probably be right because I'm very socially inept. Get off my screen. Alajuela, Guanacaste, Punta Arenas, Costa Rica. Excellent country. Grows the best bananas on the planet. By far, no contest. All right. Okay. What else? Three. Oh, yeah. Uh, and uh, and also something else you could do is a lot of like storefront type buildings that have like all window fronts. You'll find will like still have like all those like lights on like literally right up to those windows. You could like have them. You could just like turn the very front row off, maybe even the front two, but even just the front row off, like voluntarily turn the front row off when it's literally daytime and the sun is like blasting in. That's just one possible thing. Also, the whole blackout building policy of not leaving like a whole bunch of your office lights on overnight, like a bunch of, for example, New York or Shanghai skyscrapers do. And yes, that those buildings are basically empty. So don't try to go go arguing for the whole. What about the secret invisible overnight workers thing? The secret invisible overnight workers are not occupying a billion rooms at once. They're called the janitorial crew cleaning the building, and they can turn on lights like as they go. I mean, at least back up home in Fairbanks, that's how they work. That's how our janitors work. They know how to flip light switches on and off. But apparently in skyscrapers, that's not how it works. We just leave stuff on at night. So actually turning stuff off, and obviously during the daytime too. Uh, like it sounds dumb to say, but if you think so, then you really don't have any idea like just how much stuff is literally left on perpetually when it's not being used and is not going to be used for like hours to come. So actually shutting things off that are not in use would really, really help. However, again, that takes effort, and humans of all nationalities are pretty lazy with when it comes to things outside of their immediate prerogative. Like for many people at least, doing their job is an immediate prerogative. For family people, providing for their family is an immediate prerogative. Things that fall outside of people's immediate prerogative, the laziness will come on in an instant. And no, I'm not putting myself above that. I'm actually a primary example of that. Hence the fact that it's taken me 3 years to get around to doing this stream slash making this video. Okay. Elsewhere along the efficiency increases that we could pursue to their to their ultimate limits, the whole heating and cooling issue. So for one, we would kind of need to replace like AC slash heating units from before the pre 2000s because that's when the efficiency wave like kind of swept over. Yeah, so many of the new models already have a lot of the maximum things we could do to them. However, there are still more that we could yet do. Uh, one of those things for the AC units themselves is the idea of having vacuum seals for their immediate insulation on the conduits and stuff that run to and from the cooling coils to the heating coils, whichever one is being dumped where. At the moment, we still just like wrap it in regular insulation, or we could upgrade it to like actual polyurethane insulation. Uh, Doing either of those or both would be uh, expensive. What the? Oh, yeah, that was La Vega. Would be rather expensive. So we haven't really done that yet because we kind of figured no one would be willing to buy a unit that had that cost. But if we were to do such a thing, that would give 15% uh, a 15% reduction in electricity consumption of AC and heating units, ones that are electric at least. And then after that, outside of the units themselves, and the same applies to water heaters also with the insulation stuff. Outside of the units themselves, when you get to the actual buildings, houses, commercial buildings, what have you, when you get to the actual buildings, there are also several things that you can potentially do, uh, which are kind of rare, unfortunately. So you could do the bright roof policy. And again, I'm not saying like a actual white, blindingly reflective roof, but just a bright roof. For example, my parents' roof, they actually did that when they had their roof replaced, like 10 or 12 years ago. They're not white panels on the roof. That's not even allowed anyways. They're kind of a light blue that has like reflective stuff embedded in it. And that did noticeably drop their AC, the amount of times their AC has to run. So that is a thing you can do, and has a like legitimately noticeable effect on reducing energy consumption by AC units and the amount of time they run. And it is more of a thing than that we should go after than you think, because um, especially being stuck down here in the South, I've been reminded when I've been on slightly elevated places and seeing rooftops, a disturbing number, a disturbing number of roofs, especially down here in like hot climates, they are literally black. Like I'm not even joking you. Like what one of the high schools around here, for example, the roof is literally black. Like I'm not like no kidding whatsoever. It is just straight up black. So in case you're unaware, black stuff absorbs a lot of heat, and you know that it doesn't that kind of it is bad in hot climates especially, because then you're not just dealing with a imbalance of like the air outside is hot and you're trying to keep the air inside cool, because then it's not that easy for temperature from air outside to convey through the walls and then to inside. However, when the building itself, like the roof, is just like straight up sucking in heat, that is the building itself heating up instead of just the air outside, which then makes the whole cooling job of the AC units a lot harder. They will have to be on more frequently, have to run longer, which uses more energy. So we could use my proposal of bright roofing stuff, at least in hotter climates. And for those potentially wondering why are so many roofs in like hot climates black when that's obviously bad, it's because uh, the reflective stuff for shingles for house roofs is kind of expensive, at least in terms of upfront cost. You will, in terms of your personal finances, save that money back up in a reduced utility bill. But again, people don't work on long-term thought. Also, I mean, I also, from the aspect of myself not having a lot of money, I personally understand the not actually having the finances to do it. But apparently, also, even other people that are like in as lowly of my financial position keep bragging about how I should just get a credit card like them and put everything like on a credit charge. So apparently, just a lot of other people, despite being in a similar position to me, don't really care. So I don't know. That's a bit confusing on my end. But the reason a lot of commercial buildings are just black with no adjustment is because they tar the top to seal it, which is what you do with a roof to waterproof it. And then the business, small or large, doesn't feel like paying to have it painted over or have some kind of reflective surface put on it. They do the minimum requirement and then just leave it as is, because they don't want to pay a large upfront cost either, despite making a lot of money. But when looking at long term costs of, hey, this could save you a lot of money, they then also like paradoxically say, well, we don't care about that because we make a ton of money. So human stupidity paradox on a feedback loop creates that effect. Also, something that has been presented by some not too intelligent people in the U.S. government, and presented as if it is some solution to like everything, when it's not. It's just an aspect. There is The current insulation that we have available, polyurethane being the best, is like is legitimately like a significant improvement of temperature isolation or a temperature barrier compared to things that we used to use. However, there was no like snap of the fingers or switch that was flipped when we came up with polyurethane and that just suddenly input it in every building. We would have to physically do that. New buildings that are being built, even in the US, are typically having polyurethane insulation put in. But older buildings, I mean, basically anything from before the 2010s, not really, unless you yourself went to change it. My parents also recently had their insulation changed out for polyurethane because there was some leakage in some pipes, and that had caused like mold to grow on the old insulation. So if they were already going to be ripping it out of like some of the walls, they figured we'll just replace all of it anyways. And it's also just like the brighter roof has produced a noticeable difference. So that is an aspect. Again, not a nothing is a singular solution to the problem, but these are all like combined possible things that could be done, along with some other things that we'll get to in a second. Now I'm going to check chat like a responsible streamer. Man, you guys are going. All right, where did I leave off to? Oh, yeah, Clear Valley Tax. Yeah, he also paid me like $200. That was nice. Occasionally I will get random like PayPal donations. They're not on like a predictable schedule or anything. If they were frequent and like on a predictable schedule, and if I could have the higher levels of ad revenue that I see during some months of the year now, combining those, if they were frequent enough, I would actually finally be at a like self-sustainable level to where I could probably go home. Although I would be at like the minimum level and not be able to like constantly buy copious amounts of German chocolate. But you know, hey, what are you going to do? Putting on credit until you can't. I mean, I don't know. Apparently, they have infinite credit. They could also just be lying. That's also obviously an option. Renewables, as in what's presented, aren't going to work out. There's physically there's physically literally not enough of the resources needed for them. And I say that in return, or in reference to renewables, as in what people mean when they say them colloquially, which is when people say renewables, they literally mean wind turbines and solar panels. They don't mean anything else. Uh, uh, Not dark chocolate, German chocolate. I don't actually like dark chocolate. I do regular milk chocolates for German chocolate. Rittersport and Milka. Rittersport Alpenmilch and Milka Alpenmilch. All right. Okay. Almost done with the electricity efficiency things. The other thing is the changeover from old electric coil stoves to electric induction stoves, because this isn't in reference to like gas stoves or electric. This isn't in reference to the whole gas stove switch out thing. This is in reference to one type of electric stove to another. The Because electric stoves before now were all coil stoves. You probably all visually know what I mean. Uh, and Compared to new electric stoves, which are induction stoves, those are really inefficient. Although, again, it would also depend on how you yourself use it. If you set something like on an induction stove to boil, and the induction stove, which uses much less energy than a coil stove, it like boils or cooks the stuff much faster. If you're the kind of person, and I know a lot of people who do this, who will just leave the boiling pot like sitting there while you meander around your house doing something else for like 20 minutes before you actually come back to like cook your pasta or something, then there's not really that much of a difference anymore, because the whole it cooks or boils stuff faster has been negated by the fact that you're just like, you're just wandering around the house on your phone instead of actually like using the reduced time to cook your food faster. So as long as you're, a person who actually pays attention to what you're doing and does what you're doing while you're doing it, then that is an improvement that we can go to. And I'm pretty sure my parents are probably going to be doing that for their house soon enough, because they've gotten really tired of having to clean the basin beneath the coils. And no matter how much we clean it, how much we've torn it apart and like cleaned everything we can find out of it, something is still somewhere. Something starts burning, like when they use it sometimes, even when there's nothing down there. And yes, they have like torn it completely apart and looked for what's burning, but we can't. Apparently, whatever it is, it's we can't find it, and it burns like randomly. So ironically, they're probably going to be getting an induction stove just to get rid of an annoyance. But when that will happen, I'm uncertain. Another thing that we can do that is really prevalent, a really prevalent issue in 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 businesses and especially in airports, is get rid of the like obscene amounts of just random screens that are there that no one pays attention to, no one is looking at, no one cares about. For the airports and train stations are like one of the most immediate examples I can give. Uh, like it, just like walking through one, there'll literally be like person sized display screens just randomly. There's not even like a store that sells the stuff that's being advertised around, but it's just randomly there, just like flipping through like advertisements for like lingerie or something. And you look at that and just like, why? Well, why? Who's coming in? Who's coming to this airport to buy to buy this like stupid sex product or whatever? So ditch the whole random screen nonsense, and they've appeared in like stores now. They're all over the place as well, like on every corner, like trying to desperately remind you about whatever sale they're having, to try to convince you to like buy more stuff. Even though the big giant like signs at the entrance didn't work on you already, but they want they so they added like random screens on every aisle corner to try to get you to buy stuff. So the message of it doesn't work, isn't really coming through. Ditch all the random screens. And on the industrial level, there is actually there is actually a means by which we can reduce the like factory electricity consumption. And Yes, am I still here? OBS said I disconnected and then reconnected. Am I here? Can you hear me? Uh, okay. Everyone seems to think, or everyone seems to be responding to me like, okay, there we go. All right. I was about to say it seemed like everyone was like answering questions from like 5 minutes ago or something. Here, I'll pause for a second to be a responsible streamer. Uh, what are you, a dark chocolate person? Get out of here. You just break the cocoa beans and just eat the raw cocoa. Okay, it's the same thing. Uh, it doesn't matter. Because there's not enough of the physical material. There's not going to be enough lithium. I mean, technically, there would be almost enough uh, to like every vehicle EV, like almost. But that would be if you stopped using lithium for any of its other uses. So for that aspect, no, there's not going to be enough. Particularly though, there's not enough nickel. There's purely not enough nickel, and nickel is not like the case of lithium, where like more than half of lithium is used for batteries. Nickel is needed for a lot of other critical things. A lot of special catalysts, particularly for steel, which is kind of something really really important that we need. So yeah, there's not going to be enough nickel, and even if there would be, if you canceled all other uses, you can't remove those other uses. 15-second delay. Okay, that's the normal delay. Signs and so. Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, Tokyo has a lot. The only one that I'm okay with is that giant semi-holographic cat that randomly like reaches down to try to like bat at pedestrians. The cat's okay because feline supremacy. Sea mining, that depends on what you mean by sea mining. I'll be touching on something vaguely in relation to that in a second. But what was I on? Oh yeah, factories. There is actually a means by which we can reduce factory electricity consumption, and even yes, even super like environmentally conscious European factories have not yet like all actually done this. Uh, there there are more. We think of them initially as like being pretty simple, and so you probably can't really like improve them, but actually you can. There are there are like more efficient, less electricity consumptive by about like 15% electric motor designs that we could now be using. And that's from a variety of different aspects. Like apart from like the simple parts, about several other parts could be changed in different ways, switching materials like from aluminum to copper, where aluminum is usually used. That aluminum being used in certain parts because it's cheaper than using copper. Uh, and on what was the other thing? Oh yeah, having it's like a having more individual thinner coils instead of in like older motors, and by older motors I mean like 10 to 15 plus years, uh, where you'll see like the coils are usually just big thick bundles, especially in bigger motors. If you split that up into thinner, more numerous coils, it actually runs better, plus some of the other replacement stuff. And so uh, if we actually went through and replaced a lot of those factory motors with these like newer reduced consumption ones, that would cause more of a reduction than people might initially think, because industrial slash manufacturing consumption is actually a large part of electricity demand. I think like a base estimation for electricity consumed by specifically by motors, by electric motors in factories, because again, most of what's being done in factories is being done via a motor, sometimes a motor turning several gears to work another mechanism or to like drive hydraulics to make a press come down and like stamp something. But like the assembly lines moving and stuff is being done by motors. So uh, somewhere between like 300 and 400 gigawatts out of the 3.1 or 3.2 terawatts of power that the world is consuming at any given moment is being consumed by factory motors. So if we could do a big swap out, that would drop that. From we'll assume the lower number for generosity. That would drop that from 300 down to like 250 or under in terms of gigawatts, which would be a nice drop. All of this the point of all of this the point of all of this overall is one of the aspects that needs to be part of our corrective approach is legitimately just reducing the amount of energy we actually use, because then our total like our total if our total demand number is not as high as it otherwise would be, that kind of makes it easier to provide said energy because there's less that you have to provide. And something else that anyone who lives in the desert is going to get pissed at me for saying this, but get out of the desert. Just stop. Stop with Phoenix, Arizona. Stop with the Saudi luxury slave army nonsense. The Saudi, like the Saudi population. You guys, I showed you in the stream, the population stream last week. Actually, would only be somewhere in like the 20 millions, but it's up around like 35 million because they have so many imported workers that are in there, because they want to like those in the rich Gulf nations, not the poor ones like Iraq, but the rich Gulf nations like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and UAE basically want to do no work. So they want to live in their oil money luxury, and they do so by importing a bunch of workers from like Pakistan and Bangladesh, and essentially treating them like slaves. But even providing them with little stuff, it still drives up their energy demand and water demand, which is kind of a lot higher than it would be elsewhere because they're in a desert and it's like perpetually 120 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius, between 40 and 50 degrees Celsius for everyone who's not in the US. And there are other locales to which that applies, but get out of the desert. Stop with the desert stuff. For the U.S. For the U.S. in the U.S. specifically, it is like by choice. Like we built up Phoenix, a giant city in the middle of the desert, and have like constantly moved a bunch of water intensive and energy intensive industries there, which then attract more people, and so the energy intense industries increasing energy and water use along with the people they then bring in around them. So stop with the desert stuff. Stop it. And hashtag abandon Vegas also, because Vegas is like one of the numerous banes of my existence. Okay, awesome. So that is the end of one particular page. We've made it to the next page. We might be able to go through this one faster because it's kind of simpler. Let's see, blah, blah. Okay, I think that's the same one from before. Sodium ion. So don't do sodium batteries. They explode, and when they don't explode, they boil. When they don't boil, they burst outwards and have this like acidic sodium nonsense. And when they don't do that, they catch fire. And when they don't do that, they expand internally and break their connections, And when they don't do that, they're just an absolute piece of crap, anyways. Okay. All right. So this page that we're now moving on to is one of the people initially think of it as a CO2 resolution angle, and it is that. However, it's not just that. It provides way more benefits and also is just, you know, something that we morally we should be doing, to undo the damage that we've done. So, what is this? What is this? What is this CO2 countering slash thing morally we are kind of obligated to do because it's caused so much harm, or doing the opposite of it has caused so much harm. Slash, it would provide us like so many benefits, including reduced damage from stuff and reduced energy uses in many cases. Uh, Hold up. Who's already dead? Hey, uh, hold up. I told you guys, heavy swearing, like higher swear words are not allowed. So don't start doing that. Uh, Hold up. What was I? Oh yeah. So what is this thing I'm talking about? The thing is called in all caps, replant the trees. Yes, replant the trees. It is something that would actually take less effort than other things, and is something we should have been doing for quite a while now. Uh, so, for those who are unaware, we don't have a specific number because we didn't we back in caveman days or whatever, we weren't literally going around counting trees, and even what we have now is still kind of an estimate. But there are at this moment probably around 3 trillion trees remaining on Earth. Uh, Before modern times, there were likely around 6 trillion trees on Earth. And for those who can't do math, that implies we have cut down 3 trillion trees in permanent fashion, as in like trees that are now gone permanently that we don't perpetually replant for lumber. So that is half of all of the former forest cover of Earth, which has likely not been really good. And there's we're not certain like entirely because our readings aren't always exact, and like stuff can be stored in like in the ground and in ice cores and stuff at like different rates in different places. But that sheer drop over the last primarily 2 centuries has likely actually like legitimately dropped the O2 level in the atmosphere. It's around, I think, 19%, and we think it actually might have been like closer to 21 a couple centuries back before we did this whole mass deforestation thing for the expansion of civilization. Not all of which was actually like to create space. A lot of it was for fuel and for material, uh, and being done like long before we actually had the brains to replant and farm forests. So replanting the trees would be kind of a nice thing to do, and for various reasons. One, no, because of space availability, we could not replant literally all 3 trillion of them, but we could replant quite a few, like more than you would initially imagine. The whole thing behind the Trillion Tree Initiative that you may have seen sometimes being like people trying to advocate for it is that we're reasonably confident that we could replant about 1 trillion trees in the like available empty space we have that wouldn't be like impeding onto farmland or onto actual like human living space or whatever. So we're reasonably confident based on space availability, we could actually replant and restore about 1 trillion of those 3 trillion trees that we've removed from this earth. Such a thing obviously would not be instantaneous, but it is something we can do, and something that we're as much as politicians maybe advocate for it, influencers or celebrities, it's actually something that we're not really putting that much effort into. We celebrate like tiny numbers in comparison, mind you, to the whole multi-trillion absent tree issue. People were celebrating like a milestone in some massively deforested country about like we finally we replanted 20 million trees over the past like 5 years in X location, which is good in and of itself, but comparatively, we need to be putting more effort into this. So, in terms of the beneficial angle, what would this do? For one, it would restore the missing forest that we've removed. But even if you don't care about that, if you don't care about that, I assume you wouldn't care about the whole CO2 thing, anyways. But restoring a huge chunk of growing plant biomass would kind of start like sucking a huge amount of CO2 out of the atmosphere. And then also apart from that, it would also around with trees like planted within human areas, like within neighborhoods and stuff, would actually reduce energy consumption because of something called, shade. There is a there is an actual node there is an actual noticeable difference in that you can see for yourself. Wait, what? Okay, it's that one. That you can actually see between the AC. Well, technically, the air conditioning bill is just part of the is just part of the electricity bill, but the AC costs of houses in particularly, like southern neighborhoods that are just flat, empty, like just flat, empty lands with like no trees around them, versus the bills of houses that are like surrounded by trees in their yards that are like shaded. There is there's that produces a kind of really noticeable difference because you don't have the sun beatdown effect, and uh hold on, my brain's breaking. My ancient age is showing right now. My brain is breaking. Oh yeah. Also, I mean, the effect like magnifies itself depending on whether you have a dark or bright roof or not. Also, because if you have like a dark roof and you've been used to like much higher energy costs, and then all of a sudden you like had trees around that were shading everything, then the drop would be much more substantial for you. But there is a noticeable difference in cost between like houses with trees around them and those without. Is anybody else having sound problems? Alex says he's having sound problems. OBS says I'm normal. All right, anybody else? I'll wait the 15-second delay. Blah, 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 blah. Hello. All right. Sorry, Alex. Well, you can't hear me anyways, I guess. Looks like it's just you in that case. But yeah, so they provide the shading effects. as just one thing. Uh, another thing, another thing is reduced severe weather damage from various angles. For one, tree density, having a bunch of trees across a landscape, reduces it reduces wind at the ground level or close to ground level, so that reduces wind intensity, which thus reduces damage, in particular from like severe storms and hurricanes. They also a place that actually has had trees growing for at least a good while will be less prone to flood damage and less prone to like land disruption, like landslides and stuff. Because as the tree roots grow down, they obviously they slowly they permeate the ground as they grow down into it, which makes it more water absorbent, which makes it less easy to flood. And also they give a stability effect, like the roots hold that particular chunk of land together. So it reduces like the ease of the lands to potentially like give way in some kind of like collapse or something. So the overall benefits from that angle are enormous. I mean, try to you could try to like actually calculate it out, like, but like the potential like different reductions in damage. But I'm not. But it's not really that easy, and I didn't even have monetization on this whole time. All right. I don't know if that means that like super chat was off or something. I hope not. Reload. There we go. Okay. Uh, yeah. So the whole tree thing is something we really that's probably the one I would have like put forward the most that we really need to do. And also there's the whole ecological restoration angle. And like I said, the calculation was already made very rough that without like encroaching on anything, we could probably replant about 1 trillion of the 3 trillion that we have removed. And aspects of this are like putting them on disused fallow land, uh, and preventing like further developmental expansion via something that is really stupid to not do. Like we instead of just like constantly like what happens in my parents' area in their so well managed state of South Carolina is everyone is infinitely building all new everything everywhere all the time for no real reason anymore than just because the real estate industry just wants money. Because the stuff will usually exist for like 2 years and then shut down, and it's just a shuttered building for like the next several decades. So how about you do something like uh, require new stuff to be built on like disused, lots, disused land before like expanding outwards and starting to tear up more formerly untouched land, or for businesses that don't require a specifically like their own like store or building. They're not like Walmart or anything. Like businesses that are usually in like storefronts or whatever. Like how about instead of building a new storefront, how about you rent space in an existing one that already exists? You know, kind of simple dumb brain things from me because I'm dumb, but there's things you could potentially do. All right, and then you have the issue of fuel. In this case, specifically talking about vehicles, and because I usually I keep pressing the whole EVs aren't really going to work out thing, which then but we can't continue on our current path, which then gets me the whole blowback of well then Well, then, if you're so smart, what do you suggest we do? And the answer has always been around. It is just ignored. You could say potentially it's even suppressed, maybe a bit. Oops, no, that's Abacos. The same by potentially the same industry that first suppressed wind and solar stuff, and then just bought out the wind and solar stuff so they can be the ones making money off of it. The same industry that is not so secretly, but apparently to a lot of people secretly behind, constantly fueling for the last 30 years the scaremongering of people away from nuclear power. So you know, these have also been kind of constantly shelved and ignored at the behest of industry. But the answer is biofuel. It is a thing. It does exist. In fact, in part, it was actually used before, like up into like the earlier 1900s, before petroleum drive fuel became like massively available. Not specific like types of it, but in some forms it was actually widely used. Oop, no, that's San Salvador. That's New Providence. This is what happens when I don't focus. But so to start with, the fuels as we use them, we can actually make them at a decent enough net yield from various things. Each one would have to be made from a different thing because different plants, different plant feedstocks allow you to make different things more easily than others. Uh, in terms of ethanol, stop the whole corn ethanol thing. That's like literally pointless. It's like a one for one yield, and it doesn't really do anything except it gives the corn industry a lot of money. In terms of ethanol as a liquid fuel, you can make it at like high energy yield from sugarcane. Sugarcane is like an excellent way to do it, and it doesn't come out to that much of a cost. I think it's in modern dollars, it's usually around like $2.50 or so U.S. dollars per gallon. For the other fuels, the cheapest form of biofuel is biodiesel, which the best way we have to make that is via canola, which is I believe is it's something we already usually grow a lot of to get like vegetable oil for, and that actually can be made for less than $4 a gallon, but it's never been pursued like heavily yet, because despite us getting into this time period where fuel price spikes from petroleum drive fuel are starting to constantly go into the really undesirable ranges, they still do keep then having crashes back down to what would be a biodiesel sufficient threshold. uh, Jet fuel, or no, bio derived gasoline is the next one up, which the actual best way to get it would be from either beets, sugar beets, or from agricultural waste and residue that we usually just grind up. We usually grind it up and either dispose of it. Some countries literally burn it because they don't have a lot of space or anything to like do with it. Others use it. Others use it for animal feed. Uh, the at waste at like waste agricultural residue, particularly corn stalks after the corn's been extracted, and wheat stems after the wheat has been the wheat grains have been extracted from it. Put those through a chemical process in a vat with certain bacteria, and that will actually through a natural biological process produce heptane, which is gasoline's actual chemical name, not a like altered version of it. It literally produces the exact same molecule. That is about like $5.50 to $6 a gallon for that process. So that has not really been touched yet. It could be. Will regular fuel prices be going that high? Yeah. And they're going to be going a decent bit higher than that as various things start happening in the most immediate future. The most expensive to make biologically, which is why we would probably for a while still get this one from petroleum after like petroleum consumption was reduced via the other means substantially, is jet fuel. Jet fuel, the one like best way to get that biologically is via algae. However, the process is expensive. It's still a multiple factor net yield, but it is an expensive process at about $8 a gallon is what it would come out to if it were developed to an actual like mass production industrial scale. And the type of algae is kelp forests, and they grow in specific places. Uh, like you see the different like shelf areas. Some of those are a bit deep, but areas that are pretty shallow, like around eastern Canada and off of New England and off of Argentina, could easily be harvested. South Africa and Namibia uh, would uh, would add to Namibia's upcoming economic boom. Additionally, South Africa, kind of wouldn't be able to do it because they're going to be collapsing for quite a number of reasons. Reliable nations up here, stable places, and well-developed places, and really some of the most reliable places like Iceland and Norway have decent kelp forests, and the area around them is a shallow shelf. Japan, a bit. However, there's not actually a lot of space because their area kind of drops off pretty rapidly. And then the shallow areas in the Sea of Okhotsk. However, that's offshore of Russia and offshore of actually inevitably to be independent Siberia. So that's going to be an issue for a while. However, then you have New Zealand and Australia, which are uh, excellent places for a lot of things. I mean, Australia already has the fame of like being the world's provider of like every other mineral on the mineral list. They're the ones shelling out the uranium. They're the ones shelling out the bauxite ore for aluminum, the iron ore, a lot of the lithium, a lot of the lead, a lot of the gold and silver. Australia's always been just a big old mound of nice resources, and thankfully has been a very stable country, not prone to like horrific uprisings and violence. And here's different versions of the map. But yeah, that allows us to keep the supremacy of liquid fuel as it is inherently better. Its energy density like is not uh, no matter how much Elon Musk wand waving happens, batteries can't hold a match to liquid fuel's energy density. And the biofuel angle, were we actually to go down that road, would allow us to actually keep running with the supremacy of liquid fuel. However, neutralizing the CO2 effect from it, because we put ourselves into a cycle of extracting it from plant matter that then regrows and extracts the said CO2 from the atmosphere or the ocean, and then we extract that, and then that regrows, as opposed to using it from fossil hydrocarbons, which is former carbon stored in the ground, that is not part of the natural net system that we are then emptying into the atmosphere currently. And then there is the matter of vehicle fuel efficiency. We have reached just about the limits that we can go to in terms of capability, not in terms of like how many vehicles on the road are actually like fuel efficient, but in terms of capability. Here, let me pull up a picture of it. Probably get myself a copyright strike for all I know. Hyundai Ionic Hybrid. There we go. If it loads. All right. So while we wait for that to load, uh, basically, there we go. The highest that we can push fuel efficiency for a vehicle the size of a regular car is about 60 miles a gallon. Uh, Beyond that, you've reached the limiting threshold, and the only way you would reduce stuff beyond that is if you just reduced the weight. But uh, for for a regular sized car, a 4/5 seater car, not an SUV or a pickup truck, you can actually push it up to 60 miles a gallon, which the Hyundai Ioniq has done. Yes, you heard correctly. The Toyota Prius has actually been upstaged for the first time ever. It has been dethroned. The Hyundai Ioniq achieves just short of 60. It gets, I think, either 58 or 59. And this is from a number of different measures that I discussed in a recent video, such as, for one, hybridization, making it a hybrid vehicle, which is, hold on a second, I'm getting congested. Yeah. Which is, it has a not a like huge, resource dense EV battery pack. It has a much smaller battery pack that's good for like between 20 to 30, maybe 20 to 40 miles. And it uses what hybrids do is they use the otherwise wasted energy of the vehicle when it's sitting still at like a stoplight or a stop sign and idling, or when it's stuck in slow traffic. Because remember, those pistons, they're still firing, they're still turning that shaft. It's just going nowhere. It's doing nothing. So instead of doing nothing in a hybrid, that turns a recharging generator that charges up the small battery pack. That then, once it's full, that lets the car switch off the engine and run in an electric mode for a distance of like 20 to 30 miles or 20 to 40 miles. And then once the battery's about out, switches back into engine mode and runs through the same cycle again. And again, it's not consuming more energy to like additional energy to charge the battery, because it's using energy that would otherwise be spent doing nothing while idling, and while the pistons would literally just be firing for not actually moving. Other things that have been done, uh, some of the lesser ones are like increased aerodynamics. That doesn't really do that much unless you're like going at high speed. Although in the case of Americans, and I guess in the case of Germans, people like to go high speed for some reason. It starts getting me nauseous on top of the permanent nausea that I already have from a medical condition. Going high speed like starts to make me nauseous. So that's not really that appealing to me, but a lot of people seem to like going high speed. Also, better tires, the whole perfect fuel atomizer air mixer combo, so that the engine, and especially now with like onboard computers, can literally reduce the actual amount of fuel injected into each cylinder needed to push the piston down, because it they're now able to spread like literally atomized fuel out like in perfect distribution throughout the air as it goes into the cylinder. That was actually a huge improvement. Returning to a direct connection in the gear system, and by that I mean the what's it's called the dual clutch system, which is if you're familiar with like a stick shift, you have the shaft coming back, and then it connects to another shaft on the side, where the different like speed gears are, and you hold down the clutch pedal and you shift the stick shift, and that moves the gear to like the next gear, to make it so that the way the engine's firing converts to actual proper movement of the car at the speed you're looking for. For automatic shifting cars, the way we did it up until just recently was with this like needlessly complex like multiple layers of like self-circling like gear systems called planetary gear systems that added multiple layers of separation between the actual shaft being turned by the engine and the actual like drive shaft, I think it is, on the bottom of the car that then connects to the axles and turns the axles. However, now we came up with the brilliant idea of, why don't we go back to the like more efficient system, and just we can still have it shift automatically, just have the car like shift do the shift itself like mechanically. So now, as you approach the different speeds, if your vehicle has a dual clutch system, it will it now doesn't have the like multiple layered planetary gear system. Now it's just the two shafts next to each other again, which is obviously much more efficient because there's less layers of disconnect, so there's less energy loss. Now the as you approach the different speed thresholds, the car will do the shifting itself via a motor that operates a hydraulic pump to perform the physical shifting task that you would be doing in like much older vehicles. So there are numerous things that have been done now that can push regular sized cars up to like 60 miles a gallon. However, that isn't all that great from the current standpoint, because it's not like everyone is driving around a Hyundai Ioniq. Plenty of people are still driving like you know are still driving like Dodge Chargers and Mustangs, and also like also they still sell like regular cars that just don't have any like of the improved fuel efficiency features in them. And the actual price difference between them would does not actually need to be that large. They are actually inflating that by a decent bit. It's not negligible. Like you'll see like a regular car that might get between like 25 and 30 sold for like $20,000, and then you'll see like a super efficient car like the Hyundai Ioniq being sold for like close to 40,000. The actual like cost in which they could still maintain like a decent profit margin is not actually that wide. Like they could actually sell like the more fuel efficient things at only about half of that markup. So like down to 30,000 instead of something like 40 or 45,000. And that's not like the matching the costs thing. That actually is like including them still making like a decent profit off of it. So for cost reasons, obviously, not everybody's going to be driving around in a Prius or a Hyundai Ioniq at the moment. Um, so one of the things, but however, a fuel consumption reduction thing that actually could be done is that could be done more cheaply, because trucks and SUVs tend to cost more than cars, is if people, even if they aren't driving the most fuel efficient cars, were more frequently buying cars instead of, say, trucks or SUVs. That's a heretical thing to say while I'm stuck here in the southeastern U.S., obviously. But I figure someone earlier was suggesting, like, criminalizing driving a truck or an SUV. I'm not in that lane. What you actually like could do is similar to how many governments are unwisely offering EV tax incentives or tax write-offs or like tax rebates. Uh, you you could do that instead for uh, for for citizens who own and drive a regular car each year instead of having a pickup truck or an SUV. Not penalizing people, not adding like extra taxes or anything to people who have trucks or SUVs or drive them or purchase them, but because positive reinforcement usually works better unless you're dealing with violent crime. But you actually use positive reinforcement of if you use a regular car instead, you get a bunch of money back, or you get to screw over the government and not have to give the government a bunch of your money, which a lot of people that tends to be something you will win a lot of people over with from all different sides of everything because despite like different political sides, despite wanting like control over the government and celebrating when their political side like gains more like a controlling amount of seats in parliament or in the Senate or in whatever your government is. No matter what the circumstances, people from every side still always hate their government. So the idea of anyone when you're presented with the idea of like, hey, you want to you want to stick it to the government and not have to give them your money, people usually jump right on board with that, especially if it's a huge amount of non money that the government does not get to receive from them. So that's if you just had like a reduction of trucks and SUVs down to cars instead, that would put an immediate dent in a lot of things. For example, in the U.S., our gasoline consumption, once you hit about mid 2000s, it was averaging between 9 million and 10 million barrels per day of gasoline consumption. The fuel efficiency revolution over the last 15 or now 18 years, rather, uh, despite the fact, despite the fact that not everyone is driving around in Priuses or Hyundai Ionics, the fuel efficiency, like sudden upsurge, has actually like been so much of it has had so much of an effect that it has kept that consumption number relatively flat at between 9 and 10. So even with a still increasing population, if you did like a massive switch over from like trucks and SUVs down to regular cars, even just normal like non-super efficient cars, that would be enough to actually then probably like show like produce some kind of noticeable drop. Of course, the best scenario is if we stole Elon Musk's wizard powers that he seems to think he has, and they actually became real when we had them, and we used them to give Priuses and Hyundai Ionics to everyone who would want to drive one but can't afford them. All right. What else? What else was there? Oh yeah, the most important factor is me being a responsible streamer and looking at chat. Since my ignoring all my viewers has probably caused this slow degradation down to only 10. All right, what was the last thing I saw? Uh, no trees in Nebraska. Something something. No trees in Nebraska. Something something. No trees in Nebraska. Tourist signs in Alabama. Why would you go to Alabama willingly? Come on, you got to be smart, people. Of course, Josh apparently like. Oh no, it wasn't Alabama. He said he liked Georgia. Okay, never mind. Never mind. Josh is still sane. The Volt, the Volt, what, better mileage than the Ionic? Absolutely not. The the Volt's mileage was around like 40. The Volt was a big, heavy car. It was not like the Ionic is a regular car. The Volt was actually like it was a car. It wasn't an SUV or anything, but it was a big like luxury car. That was one of the aspects that was they designed it that way to like try to help with selling it because they figured people wouldn't be like too on with the environmental stuff. So we'll make it like a big luxury status symbol type car. So if it hadn't been, if it had been like a regular car, you know, and only weighed like 3,000 pounds instead of 4,000 plus, then it would probably have gotten like closer to 50. But no, they made it a big heavy luxury car. So it was only getting around 40. But uh, where's my trolley bus pick? I think it might be in downloads. But the most the most effective thing we could do. The heck is this? The That's not what I clicked on. Oh yeah, that was that dog that was watching the waves in Uruguay. All right, I think it's in downloads. Trolley bus. No? Where's my trolley bus pick? Man, come on, don't do this to me. Don't tell me I deleted it. All right, this isn't me advocating specifically for trolley buses. I just like them the best. Oh, nope, copyright. Don't do this to me. All right, nothing saying it's copyright, so I'm going to use it. So, what is the biggest potential fuel use reducer? It's something uh, that's not just the U.S., but actually large parts of Canada and even Australia, and more of China than you might think. The middle class Chinese actually really love personal automobiles. Uh, Something that really needs to be you know hammered down further. It's this magical thing called public transit. We actually have it back up home in Fairbanks. We go to my thing. If there's one of our buses back up home I haven't gotten to ride on for over 3 years now. Public transit. It is a thing. It's a good thing. It is something you should do. It's something you should have. Provide the ability for people to move about without having to own or without having to at least use every day in and out a massive machine of their own. Because some people, like me, can't even like anxiety wise stand driving in and of itself. Not riding in a car, I mean, but being in control of one. I have not operated a vehicle since 2013, and I never will again. So, public transit, you know, allows people to move around without having to own vehicles of their own, or at least without having to use them every day, and thus would massively drop rates of fuel consumption everywhere because you know you instead of a person, each individual person, burning a gallon of gasoline going to and from various destinations over the course of the day, you have, say, in the case of backup home in Fairbanks, you have the buses, which are going to burn X amount of diesel fuel, and the bus itself weighs far more than the combined weight of the maximum amount of people that are allowed on it. So the more people getting on it isn't really going to affect that. And whether or not you get on it, it is still going to burn X amount of fuel going its route. So there's an obvious reducing trade off there. If a bunch of people suddenly stop driving to and from places and were to get on said bus or said subway, said tram, then that fuel use from them operating their cars disappears and doesn't really change the fuel use from, for example, our max transit bus system because the bus was going to be burning that fuel anyways. And personally, for me, our system in Fairbanks is excellent. But then again, our city slash you would probably more call it a town is designed really excellent anyways. Although that was unintentional. That's the funny part. The town was not like designed in its beginning like with the idea of, oh, in the future, in the later 1900s, we will develop a public transit system. Let's build the town the most efficient way. It was not designed. That wasn't the purpose of the design. The design was just designed as it was, and turns out it's actually really nice. Uh, our entire town, at least the important stuff, essentially for the most part, is on. I would call it I guess you could call it a really warped, a really deformed hexagon. You can call it a circle or a square if you want of two main like roads that break apart at one point and then meet up with each other at another point. And then at each of those points, west and east, the uh, the lesser roads then break away that different bus lines will go down. So the various bus lines follow the big hexagon or the big circle, or whatever you prefer to call it. Uh, you know, Unnamed shaped blob of road, and then different ones like the blue line and the red line will go down some of the breakoff roads, like this road, Yukon Drive, which breaks off from the main roads and comes up onto the University of UAF campus, from which I would hop onto it, take it down to Fred Meyer or to Safeway, buy my German chocolate, sit in there because they have bad internet, and so that would mean I wouldn't be able to connect and like distract myself from editing videos or writing or doing work. So I would ride down on the blue line to Fred's, get my German chocolate, sit in the Starbucks there and do work for a few hours. Catch the red line, which goes the opposite direction. Come back and get my one meal a day, which was a footlong Subway sub, and then go to work. I worked. I call it joking security because we weren't armed. We were kind of like the only thing we could do as security in the university buildings was like hit a button on the phone that would automatically summon the cops, and then I guess tackle somebody if they were trying to like assault or kill another person. However, it's Alaska. It's not the dystopian mainland U.S. Where you guys down there, although I'm technically stuck down here at the moment as well, are full of crime and murder and everything, and everyone's insane, which is part of the reason why I ran away and didn't want to come back down here, except to visit like my family at Christmas and occasionally go to like Baltimore with Josh or something. But I ran away from this place for a reason. Alaska is awesome and peaceful and cold and dark and snowy, just the way I like it. And unlike this place where my parents live, back up home in Fairbanks, we have, this effective public transit system, which is awesome. You just you just walk up, you hop on, you hop off, and then you hop back on and you hop back off, wherever you want. There's no $20,000 giant chunk of metal you have to buy. There's no like $300 a month you have to shell out in insurance payments or whatever. And you don't have to you don't have to worry about the constant anxiety and stress of possibly like crashing into stuff because the bus takes care of that. And if the bus crashes into something, nothing's really going to happen to the bus because it's a bus. Usually, the bus is the one that does the wrecking if it gets into a wreck. But anyways, okay. So my homesick rant aside, public transit, it's a thing. You should do it, and it's not something for the specifically for context within the U.S. Because a lot of people say uh, people say like, well, people in red states wouldn't go for that. We Alaska are a very red state, yet we have effective public transit systems. We did want that, and we did go for that, and actually we have free heating and free water as well, which is sounds kind of contradictory. But then again, I guess you could say we're not like real conservatives. We're kind of like different. We're kind of out there, but then again, I like it that way because we're conservative. We're like conservatives in a lot of aspects, but then we're kind of socialists in other aspects. It's really weird. But public transit is like one of the actual best ways to drop at least individual fuel consumption. And then we come to the actual, and also it just makes people's lives easier. Like, really makes people's lives easier. And if you have less cars, if you have like lower car ownership, then you have less actual space that needs to be taken up because less stuff has to be dedicated to parking lots, which is a huge problem in not just the US, but also Canada and Australia, and now China as well. Also, because like I said, the Chinese middle class also are defying the East Asian public transit stereotype and actually really like driving everywhere. And okay, so over to actual energy itself, the actual generation of electricity. And now, anything new? People have asked about my opinions on Peter Zan, and no, he's I don't really care for him because he says stuff that's like pretty blatantly correct and pretty obvious, and then he starts saying a bunch of like really out there stuff that even like even if you're inclined to think that, like you have to be smart enough to know that's not actually how it's going to happen, and then it doesn't happen, and then he tries to ignore that he ever said it was going to happen. Like those psychic accounts on Twitter that keep like predicting X is going to happen, or there's going to be an earthquake here, or this person's going to be assassinated next week, and constantly go back and delete their old comments until they inevitably, like some of them did with the Turkey earthquake, like by blind luck, managed to guess something and then it happens, and they delete their past stuff, so it looks like they just came out of nowhere and randomly predicted this one thing, and then everyone like comes to them and gives them a bunch of money because obviously they're super psychic and know a bunch of stuff. And he's doing that by means of political consulting, even though huge amounts of stuff that he said was like really seriously going to happen. He was like really like he was like really putting his weight behind it, and it came to no fruition. Um, that's why he mixes it with really obvious stuff, like Russia's going to face plants, and Russia's whole effort is inevitably going to fall apart. Yeah, that's pretty obvious. You don't need to you don't need to go to like a geopolitical consultant to figure that out. Uh, all right, so over on uh, uh, Yeah, I'm yes, stuck in the southeast. Stuck as in I don't actually want to be here. I want to be where I belong, which is in Fairbanks, Alaska, far away from all of this nonsense. Yes, that is one of my joking like mockery points I make uh, towards my parents sometimes about my state versus their state, because they constantly like complain about how poorly the roads are maintained around here and how like uh, damage and potholes and stuff are like just left for like years on end, and I'm constantly like, yeah, you know, we don't really have any problems back up home, and we literally like repave the roads like every other year, like completely over, and we replace our fiber optic cables, we replace our power lines, and and they're like, and they used to before I started annoyingly like doing the joke all the time. They're like, what? How can you just be doing that? And I'm like, because my state actually has something called money. We have a lot of the Alaska state revenue does come from petroleum. However, now a fair bit of it also comes from mining. We reduced the oil tax from 40% down to 35%, and we've gone. We now have, I believe it's a 6% tax on mining revenue, because there is going to be an upcoming explosion of new mining operations for particularly precious metals and potentially potentially even some antimony and beryllium, but we'll have to see. We'll see where that's going to go. All right. So the actual energy itself. So we cannot continue relying on coal with it as it currently is. And we also can't do the whole wind and solar nonsense because there's not enough neodymium, there's not enough praseodymium, there's not enough terbium. And for the solar panels, there is not enough tellurium and there is not enough silver, at least if we want to keep using it for its other uses, most of which are very important. So, for electricity generation, uh, the biggest one constantly berate anyone who listens to me all the time about is called nuclear. Use the nukes, not those nukes, but the ones that are contained in big lead concrete tungsten cylinders that glow blue and boil water into steam. As nuclear is extremely reliable and generates a huge amount of power, especially per unit area that the plant occupies compared to the like wind and solar that we're trying to chase now. And also, there most of the nuclear issues are extremely overblown and sometimes intentionally distorted by people who want to get rid of it. But you see this middle, like magenta line here, for example, this is US nuclear power. Look at that reliability. Look at that. Whereas, for example, with solar, people often think, oh, you'd only get 12 hours of it out of every 24. No, that's not even the case. Actually, you get this climb where you get like little and a little more and a little more, and eventually you get like 3 to 4 hours in the middle of the day where you have whatever the nameplate capacity of solar generation is, and then it drops to nothing as you go through the afternoon very quickly. You don't get 12 hours a day, you get 3 or 4. Solar is trash, and we need to stop this love affair with it. And wind is contingent on there being some kind of storm, unless you are putting the wind turbines, which again I am okay with, for using it in areas of eternal wind. and there are numerous areas of that on Earth. I'm okay with wind power. However, it's only worth it if you put it in areas of eternal wind, not like all across the US Midwest where there's a lot of wind frequently. You need to put it in areas where there is eternal wind, where it literally, like actual literally never stops. One of the most famous areas for that is obviously Denmark and Germany's portion of the Jutland Strait or Jutland Strait, if you insist on being American about it. Uh, the flow the flow between the North Sea and the Baltic Sea, that circulation pattern literally keeps a perpetual flow of literally eternal wind. So like that's one particular area where it's actually really good. Some other areas, for example, where I say yes, do the wind power, are in Inner Mongolia of China. Let's go to topographic map. Do we have China still? We should. Zoom in a bit. Yeah. So in Inner Mongolia, right along here, after the air like shoots through this narrow choke point between the Himalayas and the Mongolian mountains from the flatter areas here, it shoots through there. I forget which way. I think it goes out this way, but it might come in this way. But following along here, especially on this southern ridge, uh, that basically keeps up eternal wind, and that is by coincidence, not coincidence, where China has happened to put a lot of its wind farms. So like that's an okay area. Definitely do it there. Some other areas include New Zealand, like literally just New Zealand itself, just all of New Zealand. Uh, the southern half or southern third of Argentina, known as Patagonia. That area has eternal wind. Also, zoom in. Also up here, the Sea of Marmara and this portion of Turkey slash Bulgaria slash Greece. This interconnect. You have the same like channel shoot effect there between the Aegean and Mediterranean and the Black Sea. That little region right there has eternal wind, so that's a good place. And also Baku, right out here on the peninsula of the peninsula that Baku is on. That peninsula gets eternal wind, running, I believe, north and south along the Caspian Sea. I might be wrong. It might be like coming down from the mountains and filtering out like that, and like coming around the hook turn. But that's another place that actually has eternal wind, along with where's North America? Do I not have North America? No, I just have the U.S. Oh, I do have North America. Along with the eastern seaboard of Canada. Basically, the entire thing. It's most intense on Newfoundland, but also eastern Quebec and Nova Scotia as well. That is a roughly eternal wind area as well. And a lot of the North Sea, particularly off of Scotland. But doing the whole offshore thing is a bit that gets a bit more difficult and a bit more iffy. So okay, well we skipped and covered the wind thing because wind is part of it. Only again, but only in areas of eternal wind, not in areas that get wind now and then, not in areas that have a lot of wind. It is useful if you put it in areas where the wind is eternal, where the wind power generation would essentially look like this flat nuclear power generation line right here. So nuclear power uh, could be used much more, and its issues are not what they are made out to be. Like horrendously, like not even attempting to be true, documentary miniseries constantly try to portray it to you as. Like, upfront fun fact, the three Suicide Squad dudes in that stupid Chernobyl show who people believe IRL to this day had their skin fall off and died from radiation poisoning. Yeah, that didn't actually happen because the radiation was actually not like that, and it wasn't actually that bad. They literally survived. One of them ended up one of them ended up dying in a car crash in like '97. One of them died of old age like just a couple of years ago. Actually, I can't remember if it was in like the very late 2010s, or if he actually made it into 2020 and like died of COVID or something. But he literally died of old age, like just a couple of years ago. And one of them is still alive and still works in nuclear power plants because he uh, he's not like fear brained like everybody is. So the issues are primarily with like older reactor designs. However, we have put like the necessary safety constraints on those and various dead man switches that like if the system senses anything wrong with that it thinks might be wrong with the reactor, or it loses like some kind of data connection for even a few seconds, it will not hesitate. It will deadman switch immediately and just drop the rods, the control rods, just drop them right in, shut the whole reactor down, and it takes like a day or two to restart it to full power. And you will see frequently, dips like that for a few days, uh, bigger ones than this. This one would be like a smaller reactor or a smaller set of reactors, but like it will automatically like shut itself down and then have to be restarted, even if it was literally just like a glitch of something and there was nothing actually wrong with it. So those can be assaged. However, I mean, it would be better to just make everything Gen 4 reactors anyways, as Gen 4 reactor designs physically, as in like the actual elemental chemistry cannot melt down. The formation that it uses the uranium in cannot actually reach that level of criticality. That also like makes it so that that uranium is not like as hot in the process. It generates like less power overall by like I think like between 10 and 20% like less power generation. However, it comes with the benefit of it literally like being incapable of actually going through a meltdown process because the particular elemental formation and combination of like other elements that are mixed in with it makes it so that it can't actually reach that level of criticality. And there is then the waste generation issue, which is in actuality a non-issue because there are these things called burner reactors that we can construct, that we've known how to construct since the 80s, that we simply haven't done until the 2010s because no one felt like paying for it. You will find across human history, especially recent, like ultra capitalist history, that that's actually the excuse for a lot of things not happening, is no one feels like paying for it. Burner reactors don't generate as much power as a regular reactor. However, they consume the spent uranium nuclear waste as their fuel, and it breaks down in a specific cascade into lighter elements that instead of being dangerously radioactive for 10 to 20,000 years, it instead the end products from a burner reactor usually will be like moderately radioactive to a level where like you could get pretty close to the stuff, but you probably shouldn't. But like, if you walked up close to it, you wouldn't just drop dead. Uh, you would get affected after like a few minutes, obviously. But it was only like moderately radioactive for about 80 to 120 years, depending on the particular reactor model you're using, which affects obviously the end products of it. So so we literally could actually like pull out a lot of the spent waste we have, and then put it in said burner reactors, and then put the waste from those, which is only moderately radioactive for about a century, back into the storage that the old very dangerous waste was in, and then after about a century, it's literally fine. And so we then could establish a reciprocal cycle where we generate the waste, and then the waste is destroyed via burner reactors, in which also generates more power in the process. And three have finally been built now, or were being built. One was one was built in Russia, and they were starting to use it. However, now all of the industries inside of Russia are not exactly on the strongest legs, so they're starting to quietly turn stuff off. And another one was just completed a few years ago in India that they have started testing with, and it's working just as expected. And there's a much smaller one that was built, I think, in Idaho in the U.S. Back in like the 80s or the 90s. That was like the first one that was like the experimental like test one that kind of proved that the concept worked. But then we never really wanted to do anything with it afterwards because it cost too much money. And then after that, so what about the actual supply of uranium? I hear someone asking. Well, funny you should ask that, because it turns out there's actually a lot of uranium, more than you might expect, diluted in the Earth's seawater, seeping out from various rifts and seams in the oceanic crust. And it's not dangerous. I mean, uranium in and of itself, like unrefined uranium, like isn't dangerous. You can literally hold it in your bare hands. But it's there, and we actually have a chemical process that can extract it. And the best way I can describe it is it looks like if you know what pipe cleaners are, the fuzzy little long fuzzy things that you can bend and stuff. It the mechanisms look like big giant fuzzy pipe cleaners, like the size of medium trees. That in a very shallow area you lower on the ocean floor, attached to like a thing that a vessel can then pick up later. And the specific chemical composition of the quote unquote brushes, we'll call them the metal catalyst brushes, slowly accumulates uranium on it as water, because you have to put it in a shallow area where there's like a current flowing over it. Will accumulate uranium out of the water as the current flows over it, and then the bottom like bar gets picked up by a vessel later, and said big wavy brushy pipe cleaner things get reeled in, and the uranium can then be extracted off of those. And initially, it looked like it required it at a cost of extraction was about $300 a pound. Uh, more recently, they were able to change some stuff, and it's actually like 270 a pound. And that sounds inhibitive, except it isn't. Although the highest uranium has ever gone is about 140 or $150 a pound, that literally has no meaning, because it's not coal, it's not natural gas, it's not a liquid, it's not liquid fuel either. It's not something that's like you are constantly feeding tons and tons and tons of by the hour into your boiler, into your furnace, into whatever the power generating system is. That you take several tons of it, put them in the reactor, start the reactor, and then depending on what generation, what arrangement of reactor you have, it then fizzes the material for literally 2 to 6 years off of those few tons that you put in it. You're not constantly consuming tons and tons of fuel. So the per pound cost of uranium, in its like composition to the cost of like nuclear power, is literally meaningless. Like it would have to be like in the tens of thousands of dollars per pound to actually like start affecting it. The cost of nuclear power comes from salaries, complexity of maintenance, complexity of technology, et cetera, et cetera. So we could, if we pursued this, we could set up specifically in the shallow areas, like say off the U.S. eastern seaboard, along the Gulf Stream, offshore of offshore of Brazil, there, offshore of Western Africa, offshore of avoid northeastern offshore Australia because that's where the barrier reef is, but then offshore of the like other parts of Australia, especially the slot in between Indonesia, the Indonesian islands, because that's shallow water. Uh, we could we could set up, and it has to be. There are warm currents, near surface currents flowing here, but it has to be in shallow water because the wavy brush things are anchored to like a bottom bar that rests on the seafloor. So it has to be like not too deep, so that it can be like easily retrieved up by a spool ship that comes for it. So we could set up a network of these things across various places on the world and constantly be extracting uranium. For example, I think the extraction rate would be one bar, like a couple hundred meters long, would have several of the wavy brush extractors on it, and one bar a couple hundred meters long with several of those on it would within 6 weeks, it would extract enough uranium to fuel a average reactor, average meaning about like 1.5 gigawatts of power generation. And so you could just have those like spaced out apart from each other, like a couple of kilometers each across various areas. And it's not releasing anything like into the water. It's not like coated in chemicals that then dissolve. Like the material itself, the like flexible metal itself is the catalyst, kind of like the catalyst in your catalytic converter on your car. It's not like something you're like constantly refilling. It itself is the catalyst and does the extraction. And the uranium was already in the water, so we could do that, and that could provide quite a ample supply. Uh, Not enough, like at a decent enough extraction rate to literally run the whole world on nuclear. That's why there's many other things on this list I have. But in terms of how long would that last, based on the sheer volume of ocean water on Earth and the dilution of uranium within it, extracting if we went to like the maximum rate of having these things everywhere, constantly extracting this uranium, we would eventually start to degrade the total average uranium composition diluted in the seawater after somewhere between 10 and 40,000 years. So, not an issue. Okay, so moving on from that, that's probably the most controversial one. Let's see. Did I get hit? Did I get hit? Listen, clear. Sorry, bro. I mean the recording of the stream will be up afterwards, like always. I'm not as I'm a super cringy streamer. I don't cut my thing up into like specific segments. I just leave the whole giant VOD up there. Don't take that as like a design choice. Just take that as me being lazy because that's what it is. Okay, no attacks. Surprising. Okay, what else? Yeah, so coal would actually be sticking around because we can actually do decent CCS on it, just not the way that everyone's obsessed with the CCS. Everyone always like jumps on the most like the worst possible option of everything, and that's what they've done with carbon capture. Is we want to build like a giant pipeline network and like shove it into like underground reservoirs, which is stupid because we can literally get stuff out of it actually. So you would keep using various coal plants since coal is at the rate we use it compared to how much there is. Uh, because of like I explained earlier, there's like literally an infinite amount of coal because of over the course of the Earth, just the sheer amount of volume of plant mass compared to the biomass of other life is orders of magnitude higher. That's why there's such a gargantuan size difference between the amount of oil and gas versus the obscene amount of coal that exists. So for CCS, something we can actually do that no one seems to want to really pursue, except for Iceland. Although Iceland doesn't like Iceland has geothermal and hydropower, so they're just doing the stuff for the sake of experimentation. But Iceland's smart, so Iceland actually experiments with stuff. They're the only one so far that's like actually done and shown how this works. You There's several different methods actually. You instead of venting the CO2 into the atmosphere or piping it into a storage reservoir, one of the two routes, and you could use both routes at once. One of the two is that if you're using coal plants near the coast, you have seawater come in to like a set of several vessels with like catalyst walls on the inside. That's you then pump you have those constantly flowing with salt water, seawater, and you pump the CO2 instead of into the atmosphere through those vessels. And because it's fresh exhaust coming out of the coal furnace, it's hot, so it takes care of the heating. It takes care of the heating that's necessary for the chemical reactions. So you don't have to worry about that aspect. And it goes through there, and if you have the right catalysts inside the vessels, the stuff that's diluted in salt water, if you heat it up and it's a bit pressurized, which would require a bit of power usage, and it comes across the right catalysts, a lot of the stuff will just straight up react right there and precipitate out of the seawater into like the solid forms that we usually know it as. Like the calcium dissolved in the seawater will react with the CO2 and come out as calcium carbonate, which is otherwise known as lime, which we get from limestone. So that would actually provide, you could call it artificial limestone, I guess, which, for that and for each of the other things I'm about to list off would literally reduce the amount of mining operations we have to do for it, which would then obviously further reduce like fuel use, further reduce energy use because of not just the mine but the various other like refining processes across like the different chains involved in that process. And the magnesium in the seawater, you can also get it to precipitate out to a couple different magnesium compounds that we usually have to chemically synthesize after evaporating seawater to get magnesium salt, or that we usually mine from magnesium metals or magnesium minerals, and also several other compounds as well. Uh, Sodium compounds, some stuff like similar to soda ash that we otherwise mine or we synthesize after separating sodium from salt in the chloralkyl process, and then we that's a whole energy intense process we normally have to go through. We could You can actually get a lot of this stuff to precipitate out of seawater if because it will undergo these reactions on its own if it's under the right pressure, which is usually like I think double atmospheric. and is heated up to the right temperature and encounters the right catalysts. So similar to like a catalytic converter in your car, you have the inside of the vessels that the seawater and the CO2 flow through, or that are filled with seawater or salt water that the CO2, you then pump the CO2 through. The inside of those vessels are covered in the metallic catalyst. And so you have all the combination of things, and the CO2 itself, literally the coal exhaust coming right out of a massive coal furnace, that provides the heat because it's literally the superheated exhaust from like a 2000-degree coal furnace. So that provides the heat ample enough. So you don't actually have to worry about that. You would have to use some of the power to maintain pressure, and some of the catalysts require like a mild electric current across them, and also like a pump system to have the seawater coming in. So and so this it does require using a bit of the plant's energy, and so it reduces the like total net energy that's going out into the grid, but it's still a huge amount of energy and still a very reliable form of energy. And the ratio works about if you know what an asymptote curve is, when a curve like curves towards the line on a graph and it keeps inching closer and closer the higher you go. So you can you could have up to like 50% CO2 extraction via like precipitating stuff at an expense of needing to use about 5, maybe a bit more percent of the plant's energy. You can push it up to like 70 to 80%. However, that then jumps you up to needing to use like 10 plus percent of the coal plant's energy. And once you push just a bit higher towards like the 80s or up towards 90, then you start pushing like 15 and up percent. And the more you, the higher towards like 100% you go, the more and more of a bigger chunk each time of energy you need to dedicate to the process. But so you could go as high as like 70 to 80% CO2 extraction at the expense of just about like 10% of the plant's energy being dedicated specifically to the process. And another another way to do it, you also could do both ways at once, is if the coal plant is located near a like subsurface deposit of basalt or specific, I forget the ones off the top of my head, specific other types of rock layers. Um, if you if you pump, uh, it doesn't have to be salt water, but it can be any type of water. If you pump the CO2 in water, both thus the CO2 superheating the water. If you pump them down through that, preferably near surface rock layer, if it's one of the specific types, then they will react with that specific type of rock layer, and not the same compounds like limestone and magnesia and other stuff I was talking about earlier and soda ash, but a different set of compounds that we use a lot of, like various hydroxides and stuff. It will react with those rock layers and produce those compounds, and they will well back up as the water comes back up out of. Hopefully, you've established an extraction well. So not only do you negate a big chunk of the CO2, but you also like literally create stuff in doing so that we otherwise would be synthesizing or mining and using a huge chunk of energy for completely separately from just using the some of the electricity from the coal plant and literally what would otherwise be waste heat in the CO2 as we would otherwise just vent it into the atmosphere. So you would also have that side effect of like reducing the amount of mining and synthesis like activity, which is usually a lot of chemical synthesis stuff, especially like the chloralkyl process, is really intense, energy intensive. You would actually reduce the amount of that stuff going on, so you get like the good kind of a double whammy here, uh, and and the fact that coal is perpetually reliable. and you don't have to worry about like gas line disruptions because that basically instantly cuts off a gas plant. Whereas with things like nuclear, you have multiple years of power supply in each fueling of the reactor. With coal, usually a power plant in a if the system is being well managed, like in most of the West, and for bad examples where it's not managed well, you have China and South Africa. Uh, those points being notwithstanding, but in systems where it's actually being properly managed, usually you'll see a coal plant. It has like a giant mountain of coal next to it. That's its reserve supply in case there's like some kind of disruption on the railways bringing stuff from the mines in Wyoming or Kentucky or West Virginia. In that, usually they maintain a mountain that's enough to run for like between 2 to 6 months of supply cutoff. The time that they have to maintain enough supply for it varies between different countries. In the U.S., the standard is usually I think 4 to 6 months of supply kept on hand. And then for long-term supply overall, like I said, coal is effectively infinite, not literally infinite, effectively infinite, because at the rate at which we use it, which is, it has reduced over like the last 10 years, uh, we would really have to dedicate ourselves to trying to consume it all. And even then, it would still take a few thousand years to go through it. And that's only accounting for like legitimately usable coal, aka we've used most of the anthracite because anthracite wasn't that abundant. Bituminous and subbituminous are what most of the coal on that particular supply list is. I know lignite or brown coal exists. However, it's not really best to use it. It's kind of really inefficient. So I'm only referring to like actual usable coal. And so, yeah, there you have that. And then you have the one we have ignored the most, despite it being so enormously usable and deployable anywhere, and that is geothermal. Now, this is a map of just regular depth to the general average temperature. This isn't accounting for anomalous hotspots, which we have discovered several of, because it turns out the interior of the Earth, the flows in the mantle and the convection currents and stuff, they're not as like uniform and geometrically like guided in this perfect uh, perfect pattern that we thought they were. There's there's anomalies. There's random flows going in random directions that we don't know why, but it's there. So we don't actually understand why all the stuff does exactly what it does. But in the middle of areas where it's just a generic average here. Uh, I'm not sure whether it's Nebraska or Kansas, but in one of these, we actually discovered that there's a large hotspot where there's like much more heat closer to the surface than we otherwise would think there would be, because there's just like a random upwelling flow there, like deep within the mantle for some reason. Like the actual like reasoning is like a whole slew of stuff of like different gravitational like effects on the Earth, alterations to like magnetic fields as we pass through different portions of the sun's magnetic field, and different like inclinations of like the moon and its tidal effects and all kinds of stuff. And also just like possibly the original way some stuff was like in the beginning. So we don't really know, but turns out there's a lot of like just random flows doing random stuff that we didn't know about. There's a similar one up in Saskatchewan in Canada, in also like the middle of prairie nowhere where we didn't think there would be anything like that. And yeah, up home in Alaska, there is one in the Chena Hot Springs area, that is it's like more than what it should be, or than what we would otherwise think it should be. There's one in southern Germany as well, near Freiburg, where there really shouldn't be. Again, based on like the original like standard geological model of like how we thought the interior of the Earth worked. Turns out, it's like we found out everything is. It's much more complex than we were giving it credit for. But in general, uh, geothermal is actually more accessible than it's constantly attributed to be. For in most places, even in like the lightest places, you could actually get productive heat if you drilled down to about 6 miles, which we can do. It's not actually that hard anymore. Going past 6 miles, like 7 miles, that's incredibly difficult. But getting down to 6 miles, the oil industry does that all the time with like zero effort. And I say zero effort as in like compared to like whatever tremendous difficulty you might otherwise initially think. It is like a technically difficult process, but compared to like what your brain might initially assume of it being some like arduous mega journey, no, they usually do it in like a couple months. But uh, I'm not saying literally use it everywhere. But you also find the average depth to heat outside of geologically active areas is also actually not that far down, as you have probably been taught frequently. Quite a lot of areas where you might otherwise not initially assume the heat's actually like usable heat is actually a lot closer than you think it is. It's not 6 or 7 miles down. A lot of these like lighter slash orange areas, you would only have to go down like say 4 miles, maybe 5 miles, and you would get actual like productive heat of several hundred degrees that would be enough to like quickly flash boil water and have steam come rushing back up the opposite pipe to run through the turbine. And then you have, the actual like even nearer areas, one of which you wouldn't expect, but is down here, where it's like, say only 3 miles down, maybe only two. And then you get like the geologically active areas in like compression mountain ranges and along like fault coasts, where it's literally like only between 1 and 2 miles down that you get several hundred-degree rock that can flash boil water for you. So even with regular physical drill bit technology, going as deep as is necessary, uh, especially once you're outside of the light areas, once you go into like areas like this, and then especially areas like that, and then like that, going as deep as you need to go is actually not like a real challenge. We do it all the time. We just no one's really put anything into geothermal because, and I'm going to get flack for saying this. We don't find it appealing. That is literally the reason it doesn't look green. Like people aren't interested in it because solar panels and wind turbines they look green. They look like they're the future. Geothermal power plants, they literally look like a regular power plant, like a regular fuel burning power plant, except there's no fuel being burned. It's just water being injected down into hot rock, coming back up, running through the turbine, condensing back into water, and going back down to run through the hot rock again. So they literally just look like a regular power plant. So they're not aesthetically pleasing to people, which enhances my point from earlier that people are inherently stupid and don't like actually think about things. But so uh, colloquially, colloquially, we can literally put geothermal anywhere. You just have to like actually be willing to drill down to get it, which I mean that does cost money, and building the plant costs money. But so does like not doing it because of what not doing it results in. which is kind of the whole thing we're trying to avoid. But then we keep pursuing non-solutions and not wanting to pursue actual solutions because actual solutions cost money. So it's a whole cycle that we've locked ourselves into that we're clearly not actually going to get out of because we don't want to. But even uh, even if you were willing to go a bit beyond that, we have something new now called millimeter wave drilling, and it actually this one, you can tell it's real because it's not coming from Elon Musk. Basically, that's basically I that's the quickest like sell for anything I can think of at this point. And the fact that he's pushed things that far is really sad. Uh, but yeah, we it's essentially for all intents and purposes, it's essentially a giant microwave wizard rod that once you drill down like conventionally a few miles, you then insert the millimeter wave drill head and you hook it up to a megawatt of power, and it blasts hyper focused microwaves like immediately right down on the rock in front of it, and that superheats the rock so fast that it doesn't even liquefy. It literally gasifies the rock. It gasifies it into gas and ash because it breaks the components apart into like the trapped oxygen and stuff will come out, and then the silicates and whatnot will then they're still solid, but they'll get blown up with the rising ash, and then it's helped by a blast of air from the surface coming down that blasted upwards, and so this then allows you to without actually punching it because it's not physically contacting the rock in front of it. So in just fun terms, this actually allows us or will allow us because it was just developed a couple of years back and has finally been demonstrated a few times now. In I'm not sure where in the U.S. I think it was in might have been in Colorado, maybe I'm not sure. Also in Israel and in one other place, I'm not sure. But this literally will allow us Rockwise to punch through literally anything, including the super dense high pressure rock that basically causes us impassable difficulties once we hit 7 miles. So science wise, for those of you who are like geologically science inclined and just want to learn more stuff, rejoice because this is our key. This is our ticket to finally like actually going deeper than 7 miles and getting finally seeing more of like what the actual layers are like. And potentially, as geologists want to do, maybe drilling down to the mantle. Although you would be sacrificing a drill in that process once you got that far down. But hey, if they want to do it for the sake of doing it. But the real key here is the what this offers for geothermal, because this allows us to actually punch deeper more easily than conventional drilling does, and even punch like further than conventional drilling can, getting to even hotter rock. And if you want to watch that like drilling thing, it's actually uh, it is really really cool to watch. Unfortunately, there's no like examples of it like down in one of their actual like test drilling wells because they can't stick a camera down there because it would have to be on the drill head, in which case it would get fried by the microwaves. But up on the surface, like in a lab, there is like example video of it showing it like doing that to like a big dense slab of granite, and it literally does the granite like the rock literally flashes like sun flashes and starts gasifying, and the cylindrical hole starts like going into it. It is like one of the few times where you're actually finally getting to see some sci-fi looking nonsense that is actually real. Okay, so a combination of all these things, these particular energy sourcing methods, would allow us like the actual optimal system. However, we're not going to do this because we're stupid and decided to chase after either not attempting solutions or chase after solutions that aren't going to work out. So back to hee haw and misery because that's what humanity's good for. Okay, let me see here. What did I miss? Uh, Wait, like actual TV, like cable news that runs live and stuff. Does that still like go? Because I know those companies exist, like CNN and stuff exists. I'm only used to seeing them like just uploading like 10-minute bits one by one. I had a I had no idea that it was a I had no idea that they were like literally still doing like live by the hour stuff. Okay, so it is in Nebraska, all right. Yeah, I was always forgetting whether it was Kansas or Nebraska. Uh, oh, you mean returning to the prosperity age? The whole 1950s to up to late 2000s period. Uh, yeah, no, that's not coming back. Um, we blew that, and if we somehow like everything I've been talking about here, if we like snap finger flip switched right now uh, with uh, with like a just instantaneous like whatever, and it all just switched over to everything that I just spoke of. Uh, we could come close back to that. However, it still wouldn't be the same. We would be able to maintain this present modern living, this quality of life. However, it would be locked into a flat perpetual perpetuality of being about 40% more expensive than I can't say now anymore because when I said that, that was based on like 2020 prices before the present multiple crises started happening over the last couple of years. So now various prices are more out of like whack than others. But referring back to the last price normalcy around like 2020, it would be about 40% more. Life would be about 40% more expensive than that before like everything started. But then it would kind of basically be like be flat at that bigger chunk. However, that would be if like we did all of this, and also if we managed to do it like all quickly or near instantaneously, which we're not, because we're not even really pursuing any of these, uh, except for except for recycling. At least we're pursuing that, and we started trying to pursue the replant the trees thing, except not really. And we pursued like developing energy and fuel efficiency, but then we're not really like doing it. Like we created it. It exists now. It's an available option. You can buy LED bulbs. You can buy like fuel efficient cars, but we're not actually doing it. At least not a lot of people. Um, but yeah. So if we actually did all the stuff I've been going on for the last like 3 hours for, then we would be able to continue this quality of life, but it would be about 40% more expensive. But then it would be basically locked like that, with the exception of random events like, I don't know, an asteroid strike or maybe Yellowstone erupting. Dang, $20 again, always from Nebraska, giving me that corn money. Actually, sorry, no, you're wheat. You guys are wheat fields. I'm thinking of Iowa. Always giving me that wheat field money. Thank you very much. I did actually recently buy some German chocolate, so that's like a reimbursement, I'll assume. But yeah, unfortunately, we're not really trying to pursue any of these things. We're either pursuing nothing or we're pursuing stuff that isn't going to work because well, we're addicted to things that look nice, like wind and solar, that aren't going to work out because there's not actually enough of the critical resources that they require, and we're not willing to diverge from them because we are constantly, as a species, subject to the sunken cost fallacy. The stuff that like makes a bunch of people keep watching bad, cringy shows that they started watching because they feel like they've wasted too much time watching them already. That it would they'd feel like self betraying if they stopped watching it. So we're not actually going to go down any of those things. We're more going to go down the route of uh, various various brick walls to the face and uh, economic implosions. Some places like China and India are going to go down the road of mass death events, probably Nigeria as well, along with a number of other places. And it's just going to be awesome and fun. The 2020s going forward, not in my desired like scenario that I've been talking about for the last 3 hours, but in terms of like what's probably actually going to happen, the 2020s, as we go through the rest of them, are going to relatively still seem like kind of normal-ish, with the exception of it'll seem like random chaos here and there, like Sri Lanka completely collapses, or I'm mentioning stuff that has happened. Russia invades Ukraine. China is probably going to invade Taiwan. There's going to be like random stuff here and there, but the general like mass supply availability collapse and the like uh, tripling, uh, decoupling of prices and stuff. That's not going to like start heavily until we roll into the 2030s. That's when we realize that we're like on an actual downward slope, and the 2030s is when conflict and stuff is really going to intensify. And then once we roll into the 2040s, as I was like fictionally depicting in that A Day in 2043 video where I was talking about that novel I wrote once, that I thankfully burned from existence because it was really cringy. But that I managed to get a lot of like future prediction stuff right in, despite the fact that I was really young. Uh, but once we go into the 2040s, that's when we pass like over the curve and we hit the actual like real drop. And the epitome of broken chaos worldwide is around like mid-century or so. Um, let's see, what did I miss? Wait, you were actually watching my photography stream. I need to. I'm going to do a second one. I need to do a second one. I'm probably going to do that as my next one maybe because I only got through like half of my photography in that one. Because I way overestimated how quickly I would go through everything. Uh, Wait, were you watching it? Were you watching it just because I said my name? I mean, if you were looking for my name, my name's Michael. My real name is Michael, at least. My real name is Michael. My cat's name is Bindi. She's technically not mine. She's legally my parents' cat, obviously, because they're the ones who own her. And but ever since I came down here after my job ended because of 2020, and I've been stuck down here, she's made it pretty clear to them that they're obsolete, and I'm actually her favorite human because she is always like desperately trying to be around me. So effectively, she's my cat in reality. I say that. Ooh, thank you. 10 Canadian dollars. I think that's $8. What's the conversion rate? I don't know. You guys were doing pretty decently a while ago, but then you fell down. The CAD. Uh, yeah, I think that's like easy to work backwards. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know why but for some reason, CAD always just seems like an obnoxiously hilarious like abbreviation for a currency. Like I would expect like I wouldn't laugh so hard if it was like CAN like CAM, but for some reason CAD just like seems funny. Oh yeah, and I sorry to Josh, but I've repeatedly like from the very beginning I kind of repeatedly doxed Josh, but Josh's name is Josh by the way. He also streams on he streams on Twitch. He is where is he? Copy. Yeah, there's that's Josh's Twitch. If anyone wants to go follow him on Twitch. He streams every now and then, but then he gets lazy and doesn't stream. And I've like I have to try to metaphysically through text messages like beat him back into streaming. But it's sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. All right. I think that's it. I think that's almost it. Um, oh yeah. One of the other things that actually really needs to happen that would have a bigger impact than people might initially think is uh means of actual just regular reduction of consumption. Um, that not from your end, not like you like trying to make yourself live on less, but actually from the distributor slash seller end. Uh, is cease the over ordering stuff because you'll notice stores um store shelves like they have like way more stuff unless there's a supply disruption than people are actually going to buy, and especially with expiring items, they oftentimes will just like trash a lot of stuff. So like an actual avenue here is just how about we stop ordering like 5 times as much stuff as we're selling? That might actually like help a bit. It would for one, it would literally reduce the cost to the store because if you're not reselling everything that you order, you place bulk orders of, then you're not making as much money as you could, or you're losing that money. And also you have the end effect at the actual like production phase of it, where if less is being ordered because we're not like having 5x stocked shelves of everything anymore, then you end up producing less stuff, which results in less material consumption and less energy consumption. And also stop the overchaining. Like there don't need to be like 50 McDonald's and like 10 Walmarts on every street of every city in the world. Like it's a bit much because then that amplifies the issue of like more things being ordered and thus made than anyone is actually going to use. But that is about the end of it. The end of this long, rambly rant. That Just imagine if I actually did this as a video. I would have recorded all of this, and then I would like 3 hours to edit down into something consumable for you guys. That would be like double-digit hours of editing. That would be at least 10 hours plus. Like It's like, man, you are the exception to the rule there. I'm assuming you live like in the middle of like some like absentee zone or something. Like in backup home in Fairbanks, despite the fact that we have close to 100,000 people, we only have three, four. I think four McDonald's in the whole city. But there might be a fifth one that I'm not remembering, but I'm pretty sure it's four. We only have four in the whole city for like 100,000 people. Whereas down here where my parents live, even just in their town where there's only 30,000 people, there's like eight McDonald's. Uh, so it also does vary by region. But yeah, that's going to be the end of this then. Uh, Now I want to go like eat food, and so I will call it here, and I will. Uh, I'm not the OPEC production levels video might be out tomorrow. If not, then it should be out on Thursday. And then the day after, the individual shale play production update video should follow that. And then uh, I will proceed with a photography stream for the second half of the like 20,000 photography shots that I've taken sometime soon, probably next week, maybe this weekend, but probably next week. Uh, yeah, the McDonald's you used to work at way back when that one got shut down because I'm assuming they got sick of all the drug dealing going on in there. But it's now just a rental space. But yeah, that's the end of this one. So thank you guys. Also, thank you to people who gave me money that I don't deserve to have. But I will see you. Oh, and the video, the recording of this will be up and available to watch. But